Ah, a delightful request. A long 20-minute tale of Nasreddin Hodja, or Juha as he's known in some parts, and a foolish thief. Let's weave a story that's both entertaining and worth your time. Here's an extended narrative that blends Hodja's wit with the simple-mindedness of a would-be robber. In the bustling city of Baghdad, under the warm embrace of a sunny afternoon, Mullah Nasreddin Hodja was comfortably settled in the courtyard of his modest home. The dappled sunlight filtered through the leaves of a sprawling fig tree, casting dancing shadows on the ground. He wore his usual simple robe and a slightly askew turban, a familiar sight in the neighborhood. In his hands, he held an old, well-loved book, its pages turned with a slow, thoughtful rhythm. The fragrant scent of jasmine from his small garden drifted through the air, creating an atmosphere of peace and tranquility. Unbeknownst to the Hodja initially, a rather dim-witted thief was stealthily making his way towards his courtyard. This particular thief was more renowned in the vicinity for his utter lack of cleverness than for any successful heists. He moved with clumsy, hesitant steps, attempting to appear inconspicuous while constantly glancing around with obvious nervousness. The Hodja, with his keen eyes, noticed the approaching figure from the corner of his vision. However, he feigned deep absorption in his book, muttering some unintelligible words as if lost in profound contemplation. The thief crept closer with excruciating slowness, as if each footfall might betray his presence. Finally, reaching a point near the Hodja, he cleared his throat with a soft, awkward cough. The Hodja slowly raised his head, feigning surprise. He looked at the thief with exaggerated bewilderment and inquired, "Who are you, and what brings you here?" The thief stammered for a moment, then blurted out in a flustered tone, "Oh, kind sir, I am a poor, lost traveller, and I find myself terribly hungry and weary." The Hodja scrutinized him with a thoughtful gaze, a hint of suspicion in his eyes. "You appear to be in rather good health for a lost traveller, and your garments are not as tattered as your words suggest." The thief grew even more flustered, quickly adding, "That is because I was recently a guest of a generous man, but I had to depart in haste due to an unforeseen matter." The Hodja nodded slowly, a knowing glint in his eye. "Well, you certainly seem to be in need of assistance. Please, sit here for a moment, and I shall fetch you some food and water." The thief's face brightened considerably. He believed his ruse had worked perfectly. He settled down on the edge of the courtyard, his eyes fixed on the Hodja as he disappeared into the house. After a short while, the Hodja returned, carrying a large covered dish and a pitcher full of water. He placed them before the thief with a sly smile. "Please, my brother," he said, "eat and drink until your strength returns." The thief eagerly pounced on the food, devouring it with remarkable speed, as if he hadn't seen sustenance in days. The Hodja watched him in silence, murmuring a few quiet prayers under his breath. When the thief had finished eating and drinking, he sighed contentedly. "Thank you most kindly, sir," he said. "You have saved me from starvation and thirst." The Hodja smiled benignly. "You are most welcome, my brother. It is the duty of hospitality. But since you are a stranger and lost, do you not carry anything that might identify you or your destination?" The thief faltered again, responding, "Indeed, I seem to have lost my satchel along the way, and it contained all my papers and belongings." At this point, the Hodja began to put his plan into motion. He said with feigned seriousness, "That is most unfortunate, but do not worry, I shall help you. I know some kind people in the city. Perhaps they can assist you in finding your satchel or provide you with shelter." The Hodja rose and went back into his house. This time, he emerged carrying a thick rope. The thief looked at it with growing apprehension and confusion. The Hodja held up the rope and said, "Since you are an honored guest, and to ensure your safety while I seek assistance for you, I shall just tie you here in the courtyard for a little while. That way, you won't get lost again, and I can have peace of mind while I'm out searching." A cold dread washed over the thief. He suddenly realized that this seemingly simple man was far more astute than he had initially perceived. He tried to squirm away, his voice laced with fear. "No, no need for that, kind sir. I feel much better now, and I can find my own way." But the Hodja was already upon him. With surprising swiftness, he took the thief's hand and tied it securely with the rope to the sturdy trunk of the fig tree. The thief began to plead and beg. "Please, sir, do not do this. I am not a lost traveler. I am—" The Hodja interrupted him with a calm smile. "You are my honored guest, and you said you were lost and in need of help, and I am helping you in my own way." The thief started shouting and calling for help from the neighbors, but the Hodja had already closed the outer gate of his courtyard. After a short while, the Hodja heard knocking on the gate. He opened it to find some of his neighbors who had been alerted by the thief's cries. The neighbors looked concerned. "Hodja, what is all this commotion? Is everything all right?" The Hodja gestured towards the thief tied to the tree and said calmly, "This is a dear guest who claimed to be lost and hungry. I offered him food and drink, and to prevent him from getting lost again while I search for someone to assist him, I have simply secured him here for a little while." The neighbors looked at the bound thief and then at the Hodja, their expressions a mixture of astonishment and amusement. They exchanged knowing glances. They were all familiar with the Hodja's peculiar brand of logic. One of the neighbors addressed the thief. "Hey you, why were you shouting, and what is your real story?" The thief stammered and avoided their gazes. After some persistent questioning from the neighbors, he finally confessed that he had been attempting to rob the Hodja's house and had concocted the story of being lost to gain entry to the courtyard. The neighbors burst into laughter at the thief's utter foolishness. They then turned to the Hodja with admiration for his cleverness and quick thinking. One of them chuckled, "Hodja, you have taught him a lesson he will not soon forget." The Hodja replied with a modest smile, "I had no intention of harming him, but I had to protect my home. Perhaps this experience will make him think twice before trying to deceive others." The neighbors untied the thief after giving him a stern reprimand for his wicked intentions. The thief, thoroughly ashamed and embarrassed, scurried away from the neighborhood, wishing the ground would swallow him whole. As for the Hodja, he returned to his courtyard and settled back under the shade of the fig tree, resuming his reading, enjoying the peace that had returned after the amusing interruption. And so, with his wit and a simple rope, Nasreddin Hodja had not only protected his home, but also delivered a memorable lesson to a remarkably foolish thief.